Hey everyone, in this video we're going to take a look at the first story from chapter 30 of the Road to Latin textbook called De Aenea Pio. So it's talking about Aeneas again, right? Pious Aeneas, and kind of continuing the story of him, the end of the Trojan War, the founding of the Roman people, all these things we've been kind of hitting on. That's where this story's going. So like I always tell you, whenever we dive into these videos, if you want to get more information, feel free to check out Nova Latin. You can see the story, you can see vocab list, grammar, culture things, anything that might just kind of bring the story to life for you, feel free to check it out. Now, before you dive in and really start reading this story on your own, what I'd recommend is first, make sure you have the vocab really well, right? Make sure you know it really well, I mean. So whenever we start a new chapter, look at the vocab list, practice it, use a Quizlet, use whatever you need to use, whatever like version you use, flashcards, games, because it's really hard to understand what's going on if you don't know what the words mean. That's always the first step. The second thing you want to do is make sure you understand the grammar. Okay. Now I'll show you in a minute, but I have some things to kind of help you out. We'll go through it before we dive into the story. But knowing the vocab and the grammar is really important because one, you know what the words mean, but two, with the grammar, if you know what you're looking for, it means when you read the story, you can kind of see the grammar in context and understand what's going on as you read, and it'll help you understand how the grammar all works, practice it, right? You want to use the stories to practice the grammar. That's the beauty of doing this reading method. The other thing I'd recommend is make sure you read the story aloud. So if you can find a classmate, partner up with them, you read the story to them to work on your speaking, your pronunciation, have them read it back to you. This way you can work on your listening. You never want to shut those off, right? All those things, reading, writing, translating, listening, speaking, it all will help you understand the language. So you don't want to limit to yourself to just translating in your head. That's never really your best bet, okay? So like I said, we're going to start this video by going through a quick grammar. Then we're going to read through the story. I would recommend that before you look at how I'm translating the story, you try it on your own and use what we call the read and reread method. So read through it once, write down any words, any phrases, any grammar you don't understand, then go back and look it all up. Try to make sure you understand the vocab, look up any grammar, and then read the story a second, a third, a fourth time, as many times as you need to until you can read it without having to look at a dictionary or look up what all the grammar means. If you can do that, you're in a really good place, and then I would check your translation against mine. And as long as you're on the right track and you're pretty close, you can feel good about this chapter and your understanding of it. But like I said, the first thing I want to do is just give you a quick overview of the grammar. Now, I put a screenshot here from my website. I have the grammar is talking about the perfect, pluperfect, and future perfect tenses, which are the past three we did the past couple chapters. But now you get into passive voice. I've made YouTube videos on these, so instead of going through all of it, I would just direct you there. You can get them in more depth, right? Individually looking at each tense and how to form it. They're on my website, so if you look at the textbook in my grammar notes, you can find them, or just check the YouTube channel one way or another. But that might be a good place to just make sure you understand what's going on. The general idea, though, is this. When you're looking at these three tenses, the first thing you have to remember is what passive voice means. So remember that the subject isn't doing anything in a passive voice, the passive voice verb, something's happening to it. So it's the equivalent, instead of saying I see, it's I am being seen, right? So that's passive voice. Just make sure you understand that. Now, for all three of these tenses, the reason we group them together is because they share similar features. The passive voice is one of those similarities. So for all three of them, you start with the fourth principal part of your verb. Now, this is a part we haven't really used yet. It's really the participial form. So more often than not, it's what we call a perfect passive participle. Don't get too hung up on that. We will learn what participles are as you continue on with the book, and you'll be able to understand what they are kind of on their own. This is one specific use of the fourth principal part. So the general idea is this. You take the fourth principal part of your verb and you add on the verb esse, right? The verb to be. Now, the difference between perfect, pluperfect, and future perfect passive is what tense of esse you use. So if it's the fourth principal part and the present tense of esse, that's perfect tense passive voice. If it's the fourth principal part and the imperfect of esse, that's pluperfect tense passive voice. And if it's the fourth principal part plus the future tense of esse, that's future perfect. So before your head starts spinning, because I know it's a lot of different tenses, a lot of grammar, just take a minute. Like I said, you want to read through the grammar notes on my textbook, read through it, watch the video, practice. It will make a lot more sense to you. It's kind of abstract when you're reading it off something like this, but in practice, it's much easier to understand. And once you get the use of it, or the hang of it rather, you can use these pretty easily, right? It's not that bad to figure out. Okay. The one quick note I'd add, and you'll see this more if you dive into the, again, the chapter's grammar. The fourth principal part is what we call a participle, which is a verbal adjective. So since it has adjective endings, we're going to see you need to match the case, number, and gender with your subject. And I'll explain in a minute when I show you how it works, what that means. So this is a quick look at the perfect tense passive voice. So if I had the verb to carry, right? Porto, portare. The fourth principal part is portatus, right? So we're starting there. Now, since it's an adjective, it's actually a first and second declension adjective. It's going to use the us, endings. So that's why I have it written down underneath as portatus Those represent the gender. So if my subject is masculine, I'd say portatus. If it's feminine, portata. And if it's neuter, you'd use portatum, okay? So I'm only changing the ending based on my subject, the gender of my subject. You don't worry about any other endings because they're all nominative because it's the subject. So it's either going to be us, or when it's singular. Now, what I put after it is in blue here. That's the present tense of the verb to be, esse. So for instance, if I said portatus sum, I'm saying I have been carried. The have been indicates it happened in the past, perfect tense, and it was passive voice. I have been, right? That's what you're doing here. Now, depending on the gender of my fourth principal part, you would actually know who your speaker is in a sense. So in English, you can't tell. If you say, I have been carried, you're not sure if the subject is masculine, feminine, you have no clue. But in Latin, if it's portatus, it's masculine, right? You're talking about a man or a boy, something like that. If it was portata, you'd be talking about either a woman or a girl, right? And if it's portatum, you'd be talking about an object more often than not. Okay, so you start there, right? Portatus and then you add sum. That's I have been carried. If I change the sum to s, it becomes you have been carried. And notice I didn't change portatus right? That stays the same for all my singular subjects. So portatus s, you have been carried. Portatus est, he, she, or it has been carried. Okay, those are the singular subjects: I, you, he, she, it. Okay. When you go plural, you have to see that in the fourth principal part, because it's adjective endings, I had to pluralize my endings. So us becomes e, the long I is the masculine plural nominative. The a becomes ae, and the neuter becomes an a, right? So I have portati, I, Those are the plural forms of us, And I did that because now my subject is going to be plural. And like I said, the fourth principal part, it has adjective endings. It needs to match your subject in case, number, and gender. So if I make it portati, right? Portati, I, sumus, that means we have been carried. The sumus is telling you kind of who's doing it. If I say portati estis, it's you all, and portati sunt means they have been carried, okay? So the form of my verb to be was present tense, sum est, sumus estis sunt. The fourth principal part only changed if it was either singular or plural, okay? And again, it can be a lot to kind of see this written out. It's much easier to practice it. If you use something like Magistrula, you'll be able to figure this out pretty quickly. Now, if we go to pluperfect tense, right, same verb, you can see in red, I didn't change the fourth principal part. It's still portatus and portati I. Now what I did, though, to make it pluperfect is I changed the form, the tense of the verb esse. So instead of sum est, I have the imperfect form of esse, eram, eras, erat, eramus, eratus, erat. So when I do that, for instance, to say portatus eram, I'm saying I had been carried. Portatus eras would be you had been carried, and down the line. And you'll notice the difference between have been perfect and had been pluperfect, right? The had indicates that it's pluperfect tense, okay? The third one is future perfect. And like I said, you're just putting the future form of the verb esse. So ero, eris, erit, and down the line. But in red, the fourth principal part, again, it didn't change. All I changed was the tense of esse. And now I have, for instance, portatus ero, I will have been carried. Portatus eris is you will have been carried, and down the line. Okay, so this is something that, again, once you practice it and get the hang of it, you can do it pretty quickly. But the first look, sometimes for my students, it's a little confusing. They need to kind of sort it all out. I'd recommend you go to my textbook. There's grammar notes to help you out. At the very bottom, there's practice problems. And one of the sections I always add is Magistrula. So you can click on those links and actually practice sentences using these verbs or just conjugating them. But one way or another, you want to feel really comfortable with the passive voice version of these three tenses so that you can translate the story and feel really good about it. Okay? So if you need to practice that more, pause the video, go back and do it. If you've worked through the vocab, you've worked through the grammar, you feel good, you've done the read and reread method, keep going with the video now. Let's read through it. And as long as your translation is pretty close to mine, like I said, you can feel like you're in a pretty good place. Okay, so the story's talking about Aeneas, and it picks up like this. You have quod Troia a Graecis incensa erat, Troiani in partes diversas pulsi sunt. So he's saying because Troy, or since Troy, incensa erat is a fourth principal part of the verb to burn, and it has the imperfect form of esse with it, incensa erat. Now the incensa is matching Troia, my subject. which is feminine singular. Okay, it's talking about the city of Troy. So because I have erat here, it's pluperfect tense, passive voice. So I translate this as since or because Troy had been burned by the Greeks, agraikis. Remember, when you have passive voice verbs, you often have that ablative of agent telling you who did it. So because Troy had been burned by the Greeks, Troiani, the Trojans, pulsi sunt. Here we have perfect tense, passive voice. And notice how pulsi is matching Troiani. Okay, it's plural, nominative plural. So you're saying because Troy had been burned by the Greeks, the Trojans were driven, you could say, pulsi sunt, into partes diversas, into different parts, right? Meaning different parts of the world. And this makes sense because remember, pluperfect is used when you have two actions in the past and one happened before the other. So pluperfect happened first in Kensa erat, Troy was burned. Pulsi sunt, the perfect, happens second. Both of these things have already happened. I'm just trying to sequence them out. So first, Troy had been burned, and second, the Trojans were driven. Okay? Then you continue, you have multi interfecti sunt, sed Aeneas et socii ad Italiam fugerunt. So many, meaning many people, interfecti sunt, fourth principal part, plus the present tense of esse. This is perfect tense, passive voice. So you're saying many were killed, right? But Aeneas and his allies, the socii, fugerunt ad Italiam, they fled to Italy. Okay? Then you have in Africa, regina Carthaginis adiuti sunt. So in Africa, adiuti sunt. Adiuti sunt is a fourth principal part plus the present tense of the verb esse. So it's perfect tense, passive voice. The adiuti is referring back to Aeneas and the allies, they, right? And it's masculine because you're talking about Aeneas and his socii, both masculine words. So you're saying they were helped. Right? Adiuti is the fourth principal part of the verb to help. So they were helped in Africa by the regina, the queen. Carthaginis is genitive, the queen of Carthage. This is the famous Queen Dido. Okay. Then you have Aeneas reginae dixera. So Aeneas had said, right? Dixera, he had spoken or he had said to the queen. Remember when you have verbs of giving, showing, or telling, right? Speaking. Oftentimes you have the dative. That's what reginae is here. He had said to the queen. Okay. Then you have a quote: "Sinos Troiani in urbem tuam bene accepti eremus, et si auxilium ad socios meas misameret, nomen tuum semper laudabitur." So you're saying, if we Trojans, nos Troiani, there's our subject, if we accepti eremus, it's fourth principal part plus the future of the verb to be. So this is future perfect, passive voice. So you translate this as if we Trojans, right? If we Trojans will have been accepted or welcomed into your city, into urbem, and if we had been, if we will have been welcomed kind of well, right? Bene, right? Nicely, well. Okay, so if this will have happened, and if auxilium, right, help, misum erit, again, future perfect, passive. So, and if help will have been sent, you could say, to my allies, ad socios meos. So Aeneas is giving sort of a conditional idea. He's saying, if this will have happened, and if this other thing will have happened, right? So first, if we will have been accepted, if we Trojans will have been accepted into your city, and if help will have been given to my allies, he says, nomen tuum, your name, laudabitur, it will be praised, semper, always. So again, future perfect and future go together. You're saying there's two actions in the future, right? In this case, there's three. Future perfect happens first. So he's saying first, if we will be accepted and if we will, help will be given, then your name will be praised. And he's telling Dido, if you help us, you'll be remembered forever. Okay. Then you have itaque Troiani regina audiuti erant et nomen reginae diu laudabator. There we go. So he's saying, and so the Trojans, the Troiani, adiuti erant, they had been helped. It's pluperfect passive, adiuti erant. They had been helped a regina by the queen, and nomen reginae, right? The name of the queen was praised, laudabator, right? It's perfect tense, passive voice. It was praised rather, diu, for a long time. So it's saying they were actually helped by the queen, and she was known forever, right? Queen Dido. She's very, very famous. Okay. Then we go to the last part of the story. You have tandem naves Troianae comparatae sunt, quod Aeneas a Mercurio admonitus erat. So at last, or finally, right, at last, the Trojan ships, the naves Troianae, right, there's your subject, they comparatae sunt, they were made ready. It's perfect tense, passive voice. They were like prepared to leave. Why did the Trojans get ready to leave? Because Aeneas, right, Aeneas, admonitus erat, it's pluperfect passive. He had been warned or had been advised by Mercury, a Mercurio, right, by the messenger god. Okay, so Aeneas first, pluperfect, he was warned or warned or advised by Mercury, and then in the past the ships were made ready, right? Comparatae sunt. So in the story, Aeneas gets ready to leave because he's not supposed to be kind of staying with Queen Dido. He's supposed to go to Italy, so he gets told he has to leave. Then you have said consilia Aeneae a regina audita erant et Dido irata erat. So, but the consilia, the plans of Aeneas, right? His thought process, his plans, audita erant, the plans had been heard a regina, by the queen. So audita erant is pluperfect passive, right? So, but the plans of Aeneas had been heard by the queen, and Dido irata erat, Dido was angry. Okay, so remember, pluperfect happens before another action in the past. So in other words, first she'd heard the plans and then she was angry. Irata erat, or erat is imperfect. Both of these happen in the past. Okay. So in other words, after she hears what's going on, she's angry. Then you have Aeneas graviter accusatus est. So Aeneas, right? He was accusatus est. He was accused. It's perfect tense passive voice. And he was accused graviter. He was kind of gravely or vehemently, maybe gravely is a good word for it. He was gravely accused. So in other words, she accuses him, but it's passive voice. So he was accused. Reginam tamen reliquit. So however, right, tamen, however, he reliquit, he left behind the reginam, the queen. So he gets accused and he leaves Dido behind. Okay. And he sets sail for Italy. Then you have iterum Troiani a fatis in mare pulsi sunt. So again, the Trojans, there's your subject, pulsi sunt, they were driven, perfect tense, passive voice, pulsi sunt, they were driven by the fates, a fatis, there's your ablative of agent, they were driven by the fates into the sea, right, in mare. So they have to set sail again into the Mediterranean Sea. Misera Dido se interfecit quod relicta erat. So miserable or sad Dido, se interfecit, she killed herself, which is true. She commits suicide in the story. It's one of the sadder parts of the Aeneid, right? So she killed herself because relicta erat, she had been abandoned, you could say. It's pluperfect passive voice. So she gets left behind by Aeneas. He abandons her, and she ends up committing suicide. There is more to the story there. She basically curses Aeneas and his descendants. And this is why I've said this before. I'd encourage you to look up the culture unit if you haven't already on the Aeneid, Aeneas, the Trojan War, the whole thing. It'll kind of explain it. Then you have the last line. You have said Aeneas et soci laeti ad Italiam naviga verunt. But Aeneas and his allies at Soci, and his happy allies, you could say Soci laeti, they naviga verunt, they sailed ad Italiam, to Italy. Okay, so she is left behind. Dido, he kind of leaves a mess in his wake, but Aeneas and the happy allies set sail to Italy. And in this part of the story, they're on their way to getting to Italy and founding the Roman people. Okay. So like I said, this story has a lot of practice on the three different tenses, passive voice, right? Perfect, pluperfect, and future perfect. So hopefully it made sense as you were going. Use the story as a way to practice these verbs and these tenses and voice in context, right? It'll really help you out. But if you have any questions at all, anything you're not sure of, put it in the comments below. I'm happy to help. Otherwise, just keep practicing. Practice the grammar. It's a little complicated at first. Keep reading through the story. And like I said, if you hit a point where you can read the story without needing a dictionary and without needing a grammar help, and if your translation is pretty close to mine, you can feel good that you understand it. Okay, keep at it and good luck.